Hi, welcome to Art of Academia, a weekly podcast featuring interviews with leading scientists and insider takes on life in academia. Hosted by Komal and Madan, researchers from Cancer Science Institute, Singapore.
Okay, what's up?
What's up?
What have you been up to?
Oh, I had my interviews.
Oh yeah, how did that go?
Yeah. So one with this guy at A-Star. They do single cell stuff, which I have no expertise in. So basically, I had to go and give a small presentation on my work. So he had brought in his some of his lab members. Yeah, I gave a presentation and then they asked some questions, and then I had a one-on-one chat with him. I like him. But the only thing is, for all the sort of applications I'm doing, I'm trying to get more into computational side, which I do not have a lot of experience in right now. Like I do have some, but it's just that if they find somebody who has more background in this field, obviously they will sort of choose them over me.
Yeah.
So that's there. Then this other application is, she works at NCCS.
Yeah.
But she does actually quite cool stuff. So we were just starting yesterday. I had my birthday dinner, so you invited her as well.
You had your birthday dinner yesterday?
Yeah.
Okay, that is very in advance.
Yeah. So entire week is birthday week, I guess, which is fun. What was I saying? Yeah, so she works more on sequencing stuff. Like she was in Sanger when she was in Cambridge. She's a pro. Her work is very clinical. The lab she is in, they get patient samples, sequencing data, and then they actually analyze and do molecular profiling, etc. And they then really use that data to decide on therapeutics. So they really are a team of clinicians and academicians who are working constantly on these clinical trials, as well as just some patients who might undergo this process.
Right.
So this was so cool.
Yeah,
they're really working
cool.
at the edge of it.
Yeah, that sounds kind of scary almost. It's like...
But again, single cell, so we need to get training on the job.
Yeah. I don't know, particularly for single cell, but for a lot of these technologies, I feel like if you spend maybe 1 or 2 weeks, you can pick them up. Like you can pick up the basics. Like you can go through
absolutely.
I'm just wondering, because I know, for example, when Dennis hired Vartika, he gave her, I think this was part of the interview process, where he gave her like a ChIP-seq data set.
Okay.
And she had to analyze. And she hadn't done ChIP-seq before. I think she had only done some RNA-seq or something. So that's pretty much what she did. She learned how to do it, did the analysis, and just proof of concept.
Difficult, yeah.
Exactly. So it's just
basic analysis you can do.
Yeah, and then but from the employer's end, now it gives them some confidence that okay, you haven't done this before, but clearly you can pick it up in a week. Then of course you can.
Yeah. What's up with you?
What's up with me? I have to look. I'm trying to look at my calendar, but this doesn't help because I stopped putting stuff on there. So
how did that happen?
It's because
you live on your calendar?
Yeah, but I stopped doing experiments. So now it's
nothing on my calendar.
Black. Just the recurring meetings that happen every week, which is useless. Yeah. Okay. Let me see. This weekend, I felt sick last week. So I took a few days off, which was quite nice actually. Not counting the fact that I was quite sick, because it basically gave me a guilt-free pass to do nothing for a good 2-3 days. I want to say, which is super nice. I think I haven't had that in a while. I won't come. It's not that I'm in the lab every day and I'm never taking a break, but there is something about being sick that makes me extra guilt-free, which is just a nice thing to have. So I spent one day just entirely playing video games. Didn't even try to do anything else. That was super fun. And then the second day, I was building this Notion thing I was talking about. So I did record a video, so maybe that will come out and people can watch it. But should I talk about that?
Maybe in a few sentences. In a few sentences.
Yeah. Okay. So basically, I'll tell you where I started. I wanted to learn a bit about APIs. So APIs are called. So API stand for Application Programming Interface, right? So this is just an interface that softwares provide. If you are somebody who builds a software, so let's say Notion, you will make an API that allows people to interact with your program programmatically, through code, instead of manually going and clicking for stuff. You give them an interface so that they can write some code which can talk to your application, and you can use that to connect different things together. There are many use cases, I won't go into it, but what I thought would be a good way to learn it is so I have a notes database in Notion where I take my notes, but Notion doesn't have this feature to have a knowledge graph. which is basically if you have a bunch of different nodes and they're all linked together, to be able to visualize them as like a network. So each node will just be a dot, and the nodes that are linked together will have a line going between them, right? Very basic thing. Lots of other apps have them, which also has been like kind of trending. Like people like it, people say it's very useful. So I wanted to have that for my nodes database in Notion. So I used the API basically to fetch the data from through Notion servers and then plotted it into a knowledge graph using R. Kind of basic, but you have strangely a lot of things you have to learn before you can like set this up.
I see.
It was quite
Sounds
rewarding.
fun.
Yeah, it was quite rewarding. It was like a one-day thing. It took me the whole day, but it was done in a day. So in that sense, that was quite
That's pretty cool.
quite fun to do. And I also knew that I could potentially turn it into a video.
Yeah,
so that was
extra
like
motivation
extra
there.
motivation.
Right.
Yeah, so that's what I think I was doing mostly last week. Like doing random shit like this. That was quite fun. Not super practical. Definitely doesn't add to my project. But feeling good about it because I was sick. So then that allows me to do all this nonsense. Okay, so today, like we recently hit our 10 episode mark.
What?
Yeah, it's both a small and a big milestone at the same time.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so
That's so cool.
thought maybe we'll just take the time to reflect on the process, on the journey a bit. Yeah, so basically just wanted to talk about what it's been like to do the podcast, however long we've been doing it, and some stuff that we might not have learned along the way. All right, so I'll get started. One way, what I really liked about this podcast as a side project is that I felt it was like it unblocked me in a few ways. So, like, I shouldn't say I've been trying, but I've been writing for a while, right? And this has been...
Do you want to like talk about how this started?
How did this start?
With this podcast?
Yeah, sure. How did this start? You just decided one day? Is there a story?
I mean, you really wanted to do it for a while, right?
Yeah.
And you were like into writing and you had some things going on, but then
Yes.
you also wanted to do a podcast.
Yes. Yeah, okay. So I guess coming from that angle. Okay. I've been saying I want to do for quite a long time. I think I remember talking, the very first time I said it out loud was, I think, in 2020, which is like
3 years ago.
decently long ago, right? Not bad. But yeah, I never gave it so much thought. But I think I was trying to do some public work. One of it was writing the blog. But that, it was just like it's a difficult thing to do in some ways, right? You have to spend a decent amount of time doing it.
Yeah.
But I guess what I'm trying to say is I never got into the flow of writing so much. But that's something this podcast completely unlocked for me. And we'll get into as to why.
Yeah.
But it has been in some ways effortless to do this.
Yeah.
Right? I love how we can come, sit down, we get it, like we finish recording, and then every week we have an episode to put out. So it just put me in this like state of, I guess, progress, if you want to call it, of like going, which feels so good, as opposed to writing, which is always a bit of a struggle. Like it just requires more motivation from my end. It feels more like an effort, like more like a chore sometimes. But with the podcast, it just comes very naturally. It's just been super great. Like it has all these, like it makes me feel good. There are these other side effects to doing it.
Yeah.
That's one big thing that I noticed at least.
I never thought about doing a podcast.
Yeah, kind of broke you into this.
Exactly. But I don't know, I guess we were just discussing this at some point and then I was like, okay, let's just do it. And then we just started doing some really caveman podcasts in the science canteen. And then we sort of upscaled with getting all the things and equipments and like sort of understanding the logistics behind starting something. And this is such a niche thing as well. I mean, I don't know if you can call it niche. Like nowadays, a lot of people have started doing all this.
It's more mainstream now, definitely. But like not as mainstream as YouTube, let's say. That's way more mainstream.
Right. Yeah. But then exactly, just like starting off with all the things required for this new project has been quite fun. And sort of doing it together definitely adds a nice layer to it.
Yeah, 100%. I think that was the second point I had as to why I think this has been so fun. It's because I'm like doing it with a friend.
Yeah.
As opposed to the writing thing, which is like a lone project, right? I have to sit by myself in the room. You get like this, okay, I have to write, blah, blah, blah. It just feels more effortful, like I said already. But with the podcast, it's like we're hanging out, doing this. It's more fun. which kind of got me thinking, like small tangent. But then I feel like there are so many things maybe that fit in that fall in this category of like it's difficult to do alone, but maybe if you brought a friend along, it just becomes a lot easier to do and like fun to do.
Right, absolutely.
So working together is one, right? Like
working out together also.
Working out,
Yeah.
okay. True, I haven't done that. Maybe I should.
Just having a buddy definitely helps you a lot. Like I was running at some point.
Yeah.
I won't go for a run alone. It's like I need some people to just be there.
That's true.
It's eventually it's still a solo activity, but it's just nice to have those people with you.
Yeah. So
do something after it or do something. Yeah, exactly. Go together.
The work thing, like normally those tasks can be like quite mundane and draining, but when you're doing it with someone, it can be like the opposite. It's very recharging.
Yeah.
Maybe I should do this for workout because I struggle a lot with working out. Maybe that's the missing ingredient. I should rope somewhere.
Try it. Yeah. I mean, sometimes we did start swimming at some point, and that was going well.
Do more things with friends, which is sounds trite, but I think there's some legitimate insight to be had there. I feel like a lot of people don't realize that. Like you can just do stuff with people and it's more fun than doing it by yourself. Yeah. Cooking.
It's also the logistics of food, ingredients and stuff, but that also is just fun with more people.
True. Does anything else fall? Like traditionally solo activity that
research.
Whoa, damn. That's a good point.
Absolutely.
100% good point.
Yeah. The projects that I have been doing, the things I do by myself, they have their own benefits and like their own excitements, but things that I do with other people, you're just more involved.
Yeah.
You're just discussing more and then it just feels like a collective effort and like everybody's affected with what you're doing.
Yeah.
And
I'm taking some mental notes right now. Like, I should like really try this. Do it with people thing more. Like with other stuff in life. Okay?
Cool.
I will try. And I will come back to it eventually in some future episodes. See how it goes.
Yeah. What else was I thinking? I was also thinking about in regard with the last episode that we did, that was scenes. This also, it just feels like really just doing it for the fun of it.
Yeah.
And for me at least, I don't really think about, like, we have had these discussions about marketing and of course it needs to go out, it needs to like get popular. Some people, it would be nice if people can see it because I'm sure there's some value to it or some entertainment to it and it's just nice to get these ideas up outside.
Yeah.
But even without that, it's just fun to come chat and like, get this one episode done in this 1 week's time.
Yes.
And then send it out. And when you see it on YouTube or like wherever, it's just so rewarding.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. I totally agree. I think even I hate, like, it's funny because I talk about like doing creative stuff a lot, but in my head I'm like mostly doing it for me. It's like I want it to be out there.
Yeah.
Because I think if it's not out there, I don't know, it just feels slightly different. Like you're protecting yourself, you're not ready in some ways. But in reality, it doesn't make a difference. Like some of these things.
But actually putting it out there is really important as well. It is here right now, like we are sort of not really thinking about the bigger picture or the long-term goals and plans or any such thing. It's really just doing it in the moment and just seeing where that takes us. Even if it stops or like whatever happens. But right now we are like sort of enjoying what we're doing.
Yeah, I have a few different points that like that converge onto what you just said in a couple of different ways. Maybe let's just like pick one up and see where that goes. So one thing I really liked is that we started this kind of organically, which is what I mean by that is like we didn't really have a full out plan. Right? When we started, like you said, it was one day just bringing our phones along to the canteen when we're having tea and then pressing record and talking about stuff. Right? And I feel like this is probably good advice when you're like starting out something, to not plan things too much, like to not overly formalize it, lay down too many like to-do stuff before you've done it a few times.
Yeah.
Because I think like this, I'm saying I don't know if other people have this problem, but I definitely have this problem. Whenever I have thinking of starting something new, it's very tempting to like, I don't know, open up a page in Notion and then write down all the stuff I have to do, turn them into tasks. Be like, I'll do this first, I'll do that first. And
like
I guess
whole
it's
blueprint, whole plan.
Exactly, and I guess it's addictive in some ways when you do the planning. But I think after you've done the plan, at least for me, now I don't want to go to it because it's like It's like,
there's so much to do
yeah,
right now.
I've
So
just
many
turned it.
tasks I have added.
Exactly, I've just
Yeah.
turned it into a chore
Yeah.
before I even like before I even gotten started. I don't even know if I will like doing the thing, right?
Yeah. For this one, actually, eventually we did do this planning. We did have this session page, but it was only after like
Exactly
a few weeks' time where we sort of felt what it like, sort of experienced what it feels like,
yes,
and then
yeah,
formalized it more.
and I think that helped a lot. So this was actually one of the moments where I didn't do it the other way, where I didn't make a plan at all, and we like started it. So I think we even did like 6, 7, maybe more recordings before.
I think so too.
Right? And then that was like a good indication to me. Okay, we've done like 8 of these, and it doesn't look like we're sick of it. So now it's a good time to like,
really start it off.
Yeah, like think about how to exactly,
Yeah.
which I think is a good approach with a lot of stuff. Yeah, because I can think of so many examples where I've just had an idea and I overly formalized it too early on, and that just killed my enthusiasm for it.
How has the researching part been for you? Because I don't do most of, like, people would know. It's mostly Madan who brings in the topics and sort of ideas from here and there, and then we sort of build on it.
Yeah.
How has that been for you? I think you've been doing that for a while anyways, but now it's a bit more structured, I guess, because every week you need to now bring something, and then which has to be something interesting.
True. I think so far, at least until this week, I hadn't hit my limit. Like I wasn't really struggling to come up with something to talk about. But I do feel like now it's like reaching that point where I've sort of said my go-to things that I like to talk about. I've like said all of them in a couple of different ways. Of course, I could dig into it a bit more.
Yeah.
But it does feel like, okay, maybe it's starting to get stale a bit.
Right.
And it should come up with new stuff.
Okay.
Feels like, okay, maybe I should put a little bit more effort into this. Like, because when we started, it was just like show up and talk about something, and there was always something to say.
Yeah.
But now that just takes a little bit more of planning beforehand, which is totally fine.
Yeah. In terms of learning, I have also been learning quite a bit, of course, just from the content that you bring in, but also how. I mean, that's true. What was I saying? But also, it's sort of appreciating how to be a good orator, and like, not really just an orator, but bringing all these topics and then connecting them and like, linking them in a nice way so that it flows well. It can't just be like, oh, this topic, 5 things that I'm going to talk about, and then it can just go however way it wants.
Yeah.
But really sort of looping things in. That's also a form of art, I feel. And that's something nice to see and observe.
Yeah, that brings up a related thing that I was thinking about, which is the format we have chosen, right? Like ours is like not super organized. It's very like conversational, and we go everywhere before we go somewhere, which I like. I actually really like that kind of content. But I know, for example, so I'm thinking of a conversation I had with a friend who was giving some feedback about the podcast. And he was basically saying that it should be more structured, which is fair. I mean, I think that's good criticism. Everybody has different preferences.
Yeah.
But I'm really resistant to that. Like, I hear you, but I'm not going to change it. Which is not to say that we should not try to be more coherent. I think we should. Yeah. But I really don't like the idea of like scripting things, which is like, I'm not saying there's not a valid way to do it, but I feel like it goes for a different vibe. And especially from the creator point of view, it makes it a lot less fun, at least for me. Like, I like that we can sit down. Like, of course, I have like a rough idea of what we want to cover, but it's really open. We can go where we want to go.
Absolutely, yeah. For me, I think most of them, it's mostly like you tell me when we reach here, this is what we're going to talk about.
Yeah.
Like, while we are halfway into the conversation.
Exactly.
Like, all right,
and
let's do it.
I really like also that you don't know what we're going to talk about, because then I'm getting like your honest reaction to it, which is nice, as opposed to like a rehearsed.
Yeah, where you sort of prepare and like, okay, you talk about this, I talk about that, and things like that.
Yeah, and a related point to this was also like about how it could be more polished, which basically means, what does that mean, right? It again means preparing in advance a little bit, knowing what you're going to say, when you're going to say it. But I guess even things like adding in some sound effects. Some podcasts do that. They have some sounds in the background. It's just more higher, like it's higher production. It's almost like a radio program.
Yeah.
It's been like really a lot of attention and like effort has been put into it to make it like 30 minutes of max entertainment. Again, I see how some people might like that, but I don't know. I just feel like that's not what I want to go for. I want this to be.
It's also early for us, right? Like right now, I think the content really matters more, and then with time, when we are more used to it, all of these things, we can then sort of increase the complexity.
I'm even saying I don't want that complexity, even going forward. Like, for example, sound effects. I don't know. I'm not a big fan of the soundtracks in the background. It feels a bit like the laughing track in a comedy show, right? Like some people like it, and to some people, I guess it sounds jarring.
And I mean, for some podcasts, it makes sense, like motivating ones, where somebody is talking about really some motivational stuff. Then that music somehow adds to it.
I don't know,
but maybe not for like generic conversations or like.
Yeah, but this is a very good example where someone's saying something that is supposed to be motivational, but you need the motivational music to tell you that this is motivational. It's really the laughing track. It's like, this is a joke, guys. Please laugh. Yeah, so I don't know. This is again personal preference. Like I'm very grateful that he gave all this feedback that he did, but like this is part of. I guess a broader point is. Like this is true for any creative project you do. I guess even true for like art and stuff, where you will have a vision for what you want to make, and not everybody is gonna like that, right?
Yeah.
And sometimes they're trying to be helpful by giving you like feedback, but I think you should have, I don't know if it's confidence, but you should have enough of a defined taste to say this is not for me. Like I get it, but I don't want to do it.
Yeah. I agree. Even with the Instagram page that I made for my art, so I put up stuff.
Yeah.
Of course, obviously, like all of my friends started like appreciating and like giving some feedback. Do this. Their posts are sort of like all together, chopped together, spread them out so that people can see more. All of this is like very useful. But then like a few of my friends were also like, oh, you need to like we will make you famous, which is coming from a nice place. I understand that. Obviously, you want me to get more popular. You want me to you want this work to go out, which is nice.
Yeah.
And then they're like, oh, you can share it with us and then we can help you like make captions and stuff. I'm like, that is not happening.
Right.
And like, oh, add all these hashtags, this, that.
Yeah.
But I just don't want that.
True. That's a good point.
Yeah.
I think hashtags on Instagram is another, I don't know how to call it, but a taste check for me. Like, yeah, that's clearly an example of where it'll get you probably more attention.
Yeah.
But it's the kind of attention you don't want.
Exactly. So she was just like, oh, you can just like share it with us. We can help you. We can approve it. I'm like, dude,
approve it.
Excuse me.
What does that mean?
That is definitely not happening. And initially, I was like giving some captions, short captions.
Yeah.
But later on, I just really dropped all the captions. Now I'm just like, this is what I created. It's just going out the way it is. You interpret it however way you want.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to like give you any, and it's actually also fun because some people really think it in a very different way than what I wanted it to be. Then it's really like in the world, it's not my thing anymore. It's like everyone's for them to interpret.
Yeah.
It's quite cool.
Yeah, what would you call this? What would you describe this as? Is it like, it's not arrogance. It's like, I don't know what's the right word for it, but I think you need to have some of that as an artist. Okay. This is jumping back a bit. And we've also kind of covered this. I think this was in urges versus plans. But basically, I was talking about how I tried to write first. And writing is still something that is decently dear to my heart. Like I really like the idea of writing. But like I mentioned, writing is hard, man. Like, it just takes some effort, It's not very easy. But when I contrast it to the podcast, this one I really enjoy making. Like it just is much easier. And this is just another reminder to myself, and I guess to other people, to not get too zoned in by your own ideas of what you think you will like, and instead trying a bunch of different things. Because you really have no idea what you actually will. Yeah. I think it's ridiculous how bad we are at guessing what we will enjoy in the future.
That's so true, actually. I mean, I will make this really very practical now, but given I have done a PhD, I do research, and this is sort of what I know, but I also know that this is not really what I want in my life. But it really now needs a lot of exploration.
Yeah.
Sort of figuring out, there's just so many things that you could do.
Right.
And then now going out and sort of figuring out, oh, this is what suits me. But it's really difficult to just sit and think, oh, I have these skills.
Yeah.
These things require these skills. this would be a perfect match. You have no idea.
Exactly. Like, I was thinking of that exact thing. I don't know who came up with this, but this feels like how a lot of us approach, right? We think about, oh, what subject am I good at? That's usually where we start. And I guess it's a half decent place to start. Like, of course, you're not going to start at a subject you suck at.
Exactly.
But it just puts you down the wrong path for no reason. Like, even forget about career choices, even like side project stuff. You have this thing that, oh, I am extroverted in nature. I will do this thing. So, I mean, I like this thing. These are my values. Sometimes people do that. I do that a lot. And then you basically produce an answer of like, oh, okay, then based on all of this, that is what I should do. And then sometimes you can get very attached to that. Which I think is very silly.
We have again discussed similar thing in very different ways, I feel.
Yeah. I don't know. So the thing is, it took me a long time to realize that for myself, which I think is why I like keep coming back to this, because every time I experience, so programming is one. Based on, if you had asked me before undergrad, I was like shitting on programmers. I'm like, computer science is the worst thing, so boring, so unimaginative. Why would you do that? But then I tried it and I was like, whoa, okay, what the fuck? This is so much fun. And I cannot see how, without trying it, there's no way anybody could have like argued and convinced me that this is a nice thing. Yeah. And once I after that, it just puts that first model into the trash. Like, you're just rationalizing and like imagining things about what you would like. But I think you really need to try it to know. Okay, that is the last time we will talk about that. Okay, another one. So I guess I want to make the title of the episode would be something like reflecting on the pod / some notes on project management. Like, that's what I had in mind when I wrote down all this stuff. So another thing I thought we did right with the podcast was not setting the bar too high in the beginning, right? Which is not to say that just like letting anything pass. We had a decent threshold, but I think this is a common problem people do, right, when starting out with new projects. And this might be like common knowledge. I guess a lot of people know this, like conceptually, but I feel I see people fall into this trap a lot, because especially during the pandemic, so many people tried to start a blog, start a YouTube channel. There was just so much energy and I guess free time because everybody was like locked up at home. But not many people followed through. And I feel like the biggest common factor was the fact that they had very high expectations of their very first thing, right? So I remember another friend who also is like into writing, and he has also wanted to start a blog, for a while. During the pandemic as well. So we were both talking about it like together. And then I got started. I just put one out in like a week and then I kept going. He wrote one for like 2.5 months, I think, pretty much. And he never finished it. And he showed it to me. And I'm like, that's pretty good, man. Just put it out. And he's like, no, I still don't like this part. And fair enough. Like, you have to do that a little bit, right? Like, especially with things like writing. But he just like, I think it was just too unrealistic. And then the cycle time is too long, right? And then you just never get done. Isn't there that very popular quote? What's it called? Perfect is the enemy of done. Something like that. Is that right?
I get it.
Yeah, I think that really applies when you're like starting out a project. Like, you can really block yourself with your expectations. Perfect is the enemy of good. Okay, so I changed it up a little bit, but I like my version better.
Makes sense.
Okay, this one I think is maybe related to the previous one, which is being worried about what other people will think of the stuff you make, which is kind of funny to me because I guess a lot of people feel, oh, people won't like my stuff, which is fair. But I think in reality, the more common problem you're going to face is no one's going to care. Like, no one's going to look at what you make, which is different from not liking it, I guess, but a different problem. That's usually, so I think this again, I'm reminded of the same friend who wanted to start a blog. Like that's something he had asked me. He's like, oh, what do you say when people don't like it, right? And I'm like, bro, nobody reads it in the first place. So it's really a non-problem. I guess I don't have, do you have any thoughts as an artist as well?
I think even for me, with time, I have sort of gotten over this. I did have that at some point. I think a lot of people do have it. It's something normal to have this feeling of this fear of people not liking something that you're creating, and that really hinders you from just starting out in the first place.
Yeah.
But I think I have gotten over it. I don't know. I'm not sure how. Maybe just with doing it a lot. Maybe just sharing it with my friends who are like really my cheerleaders and like really boosting me up. And after a point, I guess you just stop caring. You just like enjoy what you're doing and then just do it.
Yeah, I wonder how. I think I never had that reaction so much. I was just born a bit shameless. I was like, yeah, I made this. Look, I don't care if you don't like it. Look, but I guess the other one, which is like nobody cares, which I guess is true, right? In the beginning, I mean, of course, you're going to start out being mediocre, and there is just so much stuff in the world that your stuff is going to inevitably get ignored, or maybe not get as much attention as you would like it to get, because of course you've put time and effort into it. This one is a bit challenging. Like, again, I think I am not so disturbed by it because, like you said, like usually, I guess some of us are doing it more for ourselves, so we don't seek that validation that much.
Outside,
but it's always nice to get.
Absolutely.
And you might have some expectations as well. So I guess this one, you just have to tread that balance, right? Like, have faith that you will get better with time and that will bring more people in. Do you think, small tangent, do you think this need for validation depends on how much validation you get in other domains of life? Like, being...
I'm thinking like childhood stuff now.
Maybe.
People really, like, always, when you're talking about validation, people directly go towards like your childhood parenting style and stuff.
I feel like it makes a difference. Maybe it does make a difference.
So you're saying if you always get validated, you look for more validation, or the other way around?
The other way around. Like, maybe not always, maybe not too much validation, but I was thinking more like if you get sufficient validation in other domains of life, maybe you don't seek so much from whatever thing you're making and putting it out in the public. I don't know. Okay, the other thing is related to, I guess like these notions of perfection and being good. There are like two models to this, right? One is, oh damn, I wanted to look this up, so I didn't. So we're just going to go with what I remember from memory. There is this story of a pottery class, right? And the students are divided into two groups. One group is asked to make one pot at the end of the month, and they will be graded on that one pot they've made, how good that is. And the second group, I think they are told to make a pot every day for 30 days. And I think they get measured on the average or maybe on the final one. Don't remember the details, but basically one every day, right?
Yeah.
And again, don't know if it's a true story, but like the intuition really comes through with this one, at least for me. But basically the first group, they end up researching ways to like make the pot good, and they obviously have to put in a lot of thought into it because it's one pot at the end of the day, and I guess they get reasonably stressed because of that, and they all make it right, and the pot turns out okay, not bad, but what you find is that the people who make one pot a day every day, at the end they reach like a skill level that is like much better than this other people who have been making one single pot for a very long time, which I think maybe not true for every domain, but I think is very true for like creative endeavors. So basically the moral is like, instead of trying to make one very nice piece of content, make a smaller piece of content but many times. Do many iterations. And I guess another way of saying this, to rephrase my favorite Twitter guy, Lisa, he says be prolific, which is basically do a lot of it to be good at it. Like that's the way to be good at it. Do a lot of it. And he has this like ridiculous story. So he wants to be a good writer. So he decided he's gonna write 1,000 word essays.
Wow.
Yeah. And like,
that's insane.
Exactly. That's first of all such an ambitious goal to start with. But he's done it. Like he's very close to 1,000.
That's so impressive.
Yeah. And I think this advice applies to a lot of things. Like if you want to become really good at something, just do many, many, many iterations of it, which we're sort of doing with the pod, right? We've been
learning like something or the other from every single pod.
Exactly. In some ways, it's like kind of the opposite of a PhD, right?
That's what I was thinking also when you were giving examples of science, basically, instead of specifically in like research, people
Yeah.
are not doing a lot of small bits,
They
but
really don't
like
miss.
one big bit.
Especially with like wet lab stuff. I think in dry lab maybe you can still get away with a few more iterations.
Yeah.
But yeah, the PhD, for example, mine definitely feels like one big project that has to be like perfect and polished and like foolproof.
Exactly.
And then you can give it out, and then you'll get some feedback from
Yeah. Then also it's gonna be like
it. Of course,
these 10 things you did not do.
yeah, it's gonna be that dumb pot, right? That one pot you've made. I guess some things are resistant. You can't do more iterations of everything. I guess here it just takes time, right? Then that means you need to do multiple projects over time and you get better like that.
Yeah. It's just overall it's just a really stretched out project. You're again doing several iterations. Like our PIs, they of course have done this multiple
Many
times.
times, exactly.
Across their careers. So just a slow burning process.
Yeah, you need to have the appetite for it, I guess. Should we do a tangent? So I was basically, they were having a academic career seminar today.
Who they?
CSI.
Damn, I didn't even know about this.
They sent an email. So I thought you saw and ignored it. It's very few people there actually.
Oh no.
So some 6 people.
Okay, how was that?
It's the 2 new PIs and they were giving a talk on their experience. And I guess it was supposed to be like a very conversational thing. I guess I just wanted to say that like it does feel like you need to have some level of blind faith that you do this enough and then eventually you'll get good. Like I tried probing them to get this answer of basically did they already know that they were going to become PIs? They didn't really give a satisfying answer, but my guess from what they said is that no, like they did not know. Right. So I think on some level, I just like try long enough, and if it works, it works. Okay, I don't know why I brought that up. Sorry. Okay, I thought we'll any other lesson we've learned. If not, we'll move on to like challenges. What are we struggling with the podcast?
About learning, another good thing has been that we have been also trying to interview people. So there, of course, you really get to know a lot more about these people, which you would normally not. Like, even though you hang out with them, but you really learn a lot from these interviews, at least. Even if it is not going to outside people, I myself learned.
True.
Quite a bit.
In normal conversations, you don't just ask people questions.
Serious questions.
True. That's something I'm looking forward to. Doing more interviews, which is something I put down in the what's next for the future episodes. We should do more. Yeah, I want to touch on the challenges. Can you guess what I'm going to say? The video editing. Why has this been so hard, man? Why did no one tell us that video editing is so fucking difficult?
Okay. I mean, for some of them, there have been technical challenges where... For some of them, we
even
just
getting
don't
the
have
recording
enough, full videos, full battery died, not enough space and whatnot. But for the ones we have, I think it's a little bit on me. I need to put in some more effort. So the thing is, one weekend, of course, for a long time I was procrastinating. I was pushing. You know that. You pushed me also. And one fine day I was like, okay, let's just do the shit. And I sat down and it just took so long to sort of just tweak. It took so long and I wanted productivity. I wanted output. And I was just like, I was a bit impatient. I should not have been that way. Maybe I will just give it another day and like some more time. But I was just like, I want my episode out. And then I was like, fuck this shit. I was going back to my audio, made it and like sent it out.
True. I mean, it's about balance, right? We don't want to make it not fun. We want the process to
exactly that. So like after spending a few hours, I was like, I don't want this to become a chore, which I'm not enjoying. Eventually, we just want things to be out. This will happen when it happens. But just need to be a bit more mindful also. I can't just leave it in the wherever that is.
The nether realm. I think also been struggling. I don't think it's struggling so much, but in the marketing domain, kind of clueless actually. Don't know what to do.
Okay, I will be sending it out at least to my friends, so that will increase maybe 4 or 5 people more.
I mean, this we can do obviously, but I mean like I guess
out.
Really out, like outside our network.
Okay, I just randomly added which has been your favorite episode.
Which has been my favorite episode?
So till now, because we were talking about experiences.
It's a good question. I think the one that I've gone back to the most was the Breaking Smart one.
Okay.
because that one was just like it was a decently complex book to read, a lot of ideas. I took a bunch of notes and then I just spat them all out in the episode, right? But turns out it's a very nice way for me to go back to it because I know exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
And it just serves as like a nice reminder sometimes. So I was like, oh, cool, what was that thing again? So I found myself going back to that.
That's cool.
Quite often.
Nice.
Yeah, so that would be my most revisited episode. And in terms of vibes, what about you? What is your favorite one?
Favorite one. Yeah, I wrote down and I did not even think about it.
Thought you would have an answer.
And most fresh in my memory is the scenes episode.
Yeah.
So I think I enjoy mostly, of course, the random chats. It's quite fun. But also when you bring in stories or, concepts.
Yeah.
That is where I'm most attentive.
Right.
Like while editing as well, that is where I really listen to it and like enjoy it the most.
Yeah.
So scenes had a lot
of them. True. It had a lot of stories.
A lot of stories and a lot of relevant things to the topic, and inspiring things as well. So that's motivating and like you feel good about while listening to it.
Yeah.
And I guess like even the old ones, like the first few ones.
Yeah, they had nice vibes.
Yeah.
It's very chill, back vibes.